Hi there. Today, a top 22 list. The biggest tech innovations for the home studio. Here I'm talking about 40 to 50 years of tech innovation that got us to where we are today with the home studio. Before we had all this great technology, most of us would have had to have paid for studio time at a commercial studio. As technology advanced, home studios became a reality. Starting in the late 70s, but more in the early 80s, it was a small number of folks that could save up enough cash for a multi-track analog tape machine and build their studio around that machine and a console. Today, all you need to get started is a personal computer, an audio interface, and a mic or an instrument. The bar has never been lower to telling people you have a home studio. This is a big list. I developed it using my experiences, including experiences of friends I observed, some of whom own commercial recording studios. I've probably forgotten a few key moments along the way, so you can tell me in the comments if you think there was something earth-shattering that I missed. One last thing, the gloves are off for this list, so strap yourself in for a bumpy ride. Number 22, console mixing automation. This originally wasn't going to be on the list, but I changed my mind. Control of multiple channel faders in real time, and I mean motorized faders, essentially what we call ghosting, programmable EQ, punch in and punch out, was a big deal for professional studios where the recording process was still focused around recording analog signals to analog tape. On many SSL consoles of the 80s, you had total recall. I'm pretty sure it started in the 80s with the E series and later the G series. Folks that have lunchboxes and other holders for racking up classic fader channels from yesteryear love Neve and SSL channel EQ. Essentially, total recall with fader ghosting was the domain of large commercial studios, like I just said. But by the late 80s, motorized faders were starting to appear on more budget-priced gear. The Yamaha DMP7 included motorized faders, and this unit was released in 1987, at least I think it was 1987, which probably was one of the first widely available mixers with fader automation. Other manufacturers quickly jumped into the market. Originally, it was the domain of large commercial studios on massive consoles costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now I've said that a couple of times, but it bears mentioning. Interestingly, Yamaha and several other manufacturers still make mixing consoles, and they include automation like motorized faders. Number 21, flat screen video monitors. This is a notable innovation for several reasons. LED screens aren't affected by magnetic fields. They are large, lighter, and have better resolution. When I started out with sequencing in the 80s on my Atari computer using a 17-inch CRT monitor, I was using TOA ME265 Studio Near-Field monitors because they are shielded monitors. You can use them in close proximity to a CRT video monitor without affecting the video monitor. Having a large amount of screen space is probably the biggest benefit, and it's without having a massive CRT cube taking up a ton of space. I use 4 video monitors with my system. I can't even imagine how I may do with only 2 lines by 20 characters of text on the Roland MC50 Mark II I used for about a month before saying, no way. The only downside to LED screens that I see is that you have to buy a reputable brand. Some off-brands can have a fuzzy picture quality and may not last very long. Like a lot of people, I use a TV as my center monitor as it is value priced for its size. Number 20, virtual analog hardware synthesis. VA synthesizers were and are a way for folks to enjoy analog synthesis without high prices. Some of the more affordable options are the Blofeld and maybe a used micro Q. Some folks may argue that it doesn't sound as good as the real thing. I would disagree. Where it does fall short is the editing experience, which is to be expected because it's parameter based on most of these machines. Some machines have a lot of controls, like the Alesis Andromeda and the Waldorf Q, but these machines are expensive. Number 19, patch memory. Personally, I hate it when synthesizers don't have patch memory. I love the sound of the Mini Moog, but starting circa 1978, models could have included patch memory. It was 1978 when patch memory became available on the first device, and that was the Prophet 5. I suppose the only downside was that some of the synths didn't get very much patch memory at first. The CS80 has a whopping 22 presets and a tiny 4 user presets. The Juno 106 that was released in 1984 has 128 patches, 129 if you include the manual mode. I suppose if you look at the DX7 only had 32 patches, but it did have a cartridge slot. Number 18, analog hardware effects. Chorus, delay, flanging, phasing, EQ. Affordable rack mount units started to appear in the 80s. People strapped for cash like me were using guitar pedal effects. The downside was that at the affordable prices, you don't get the best quality or control. Also, analog units can be noisy. Still, some people swear by the warmth. Number 17, ADAT digital bus. I thought this needed to be mentioned. It's a significant innovation, and perhaps it should be higher on the list even. 8 channels through one small cable. This was at a time when most digital signals were stereo, such as AES-EBU and SPDIF. Originally on Alesis gear, and then eventually it found its way onto other manufacturers' gear. Today, it's hard to find a rack audio interface that claims double-digit I/O and doesn't provide some of that connectivity through light pipe. Some cons are not as universal as we might have hoped. Also, there's been no innovation in light pipe that I'm aware of. Alesis could have taken it to 16, 32, 64 channels and beyond. We have MADI, and I've investigated MADI for my studio because I have dozens of signals to route, but MADI is prohibitively expensive. ADAT is an inexpensive interface. It's not too late, Alesis. Number 16, digital multi-track recorders. Before the move for most folks to digital audio workstation software, digital multi-track recorders had their day in the sun. I believe there was a peak for this between the heavy use of ADATs and the total acceptance of DAWs. There had been versions of these devices, but dedicated machines from Tascam, Roland, and others seemed to peak around the early 2000s. A friend gave me a shiny new Tascam 2488 circa 2004. I wasn't going to abandon Cubase, but I'd been helping out engineering some live plays, and I thought it would be cool to record them. Ultimately, it sat in its box, brand new, for the last 20 plus years. Kind of a shame. They can be very small devices and kind of portable. Many have onboard effects, a CD burner, so you can create a final mix. The cons are a lack of flexibility compared to a DAW, but great for their time. Number 15, tablet technology plus. By plus, I mean other small helper devices like Stream Deck and devices to control a DAW so folks can go mixerless. With these devices, you can control practically every function of a DAW, some keyboards, and often your audio interface too. It can be as simple as a control surface that triggers shortcut commands, or significantly more complex protocols for controlling music technology. The cons are you really need to be tech savvy. Some folks can have a hard time setting up a number of parameters and getting devices to interact over a wireless connection. Number 14, digital hardware effects. I already talked about analog effects. Digital effects brought better and more effects, more control, and superior sound quality. The biggest advancement was probably digital reverb. Studios didn't have to spring, pun intended, for a physical plate reverb anymore. Some people will argue that digital doesn't have that certain je ne sais quoi that is present in analog effects. Everyone is entitled to an opinion. Number 13, hardware sequencers. These were a central MIDI hub for recording instruments like keyboards, drum machines, samplers, etc. If you synced a hardware sequencer to an analog multi-tape machine, you had a potent studio production tool. Perhaps you only had 8 tracks of analog audio and one you might have to lose in order to sync to tape. But now you had additional tracks of music via MIDI. The cons were the use of 2 independent systems connected through tape sync, which could be finicky or rock solid, depending on how Loki, the god of mischief in the studio, was feeling that day. I made it work for about 4 years before moving to ADATs. Number 12, near field monitors. Near fields were a significant advancement. Prior to near fields, most folks used massive speaker cabinets. Most of the studios I frequented in the 80s had large JBLs built flush into the wall surrounded by egg crates and foam. Near fields brought high-quality, compact audio monitoring to home studios. Essentially, large cabinets were shrunk to shelf size while maintaining a relatively flat frequency response, and they can also be used at low volume levels. The con here is that low frequency response can suffer. Bass response can be augmented with a subwoofer. It's an option that costs money, and subwoofers can also be large and take up a lot of space. I'm sticking with my Mackeys and I'm fine with that. Number 11, hardware digital samplers. These brought real acoustic sounds to home studios, playable from a keyboard. Prior to this, if you wanted the sound of an orchestra, you had to hire an orchestra, a large space, and everything that goes with that. Hans Zimmer is well known for being a pioneer of mocking up orchestral score with racks of Roland S760 samplers. The cons are that realism can be highly dependent on the skill of the player. Early samplers didn't have the best quality or an expansive library. Also, the good stuff was still expensive. In the mid-80s, you could spend the money for, say, an S760, or save some bucks and get creative with a used Mirage. I'm also including sample bass drum machines in this category because they're essentially the same technology. Number 10, analog synthesizers. This added a new palette of sounds for keyboardists and what was available at the time, which was really piano, electric piano, pianette, organ, EP, and a harpsichord. In this, I wanted to include analog drum machines like the TR-808, since it's an analog device. Cons are tuning issues and early quality of construction issues. Although an expansion of the sound palette, it became limited as other tech was released, and analog synths can sound dated. Number 9, digital synthesizers. Once again, a new palette of sounds to add to what was available: FM, vector synthesis, wavetable synthesis, modeling, and more. This has spanned a long period of time, from the 70s through today. Generally, always in tune, which is a blessing if you've ever had to deal with classic instruments and gear that is constantly going out of tune. Crystal clear, highly programmable, though in some cases difficult to program. Some folks argue that it can sound harsh or that it's not warm sounding, but that assumes that you don't want it to sound harsh or cold sounding, and that may just not be the case. Also, a lot of them can sound warm sounding. Number 8, virtual effects plugins. I'm talking about what we commonly refer to as VST plugins. An incredible step forward. Integrates with the DAW, total recall, no physical space required, no repairs or maintenance, easy automation, as many instantations as you want. Cons are arguably not optimal for some effects like reverb and a lack of physical controls. Still, an amazing invention. Number 7, virtual instruments. Integrate with the DAW, superior sound, especially for sample-based instruments. No physical space required, no repairs or maintenance, easy automation, as many instantations as you want. Cons. Putting musicians out of work. Some functionality just doesn't work well with a mouse and a keyboard, and it's not always the best sounding option. Number 6, lower prices. Less barriers for folks to engage in music production. It makes the biggest hurdle the limit of a person's imagination and skill. Cons, inflation is killing us all in the used and new market. There's some amazing new tech at low prices, but quality is suffering on the super budget priced gear. Number 5, analog multi-track tape recorders. This was a major advancement, which is why it is number 5. Remember, we are talking about all the advancements that got us to where we are today. Like all technology firsts, it was expensive when it became available. Now you could individually process tracks. All the musicians and singers didn't have to be recorded at the same time. How the Beatles managed to record a hit album with so few tracks, it's amazing. Apparently, all you need is love and a 4-track. It also helps a lot to have good musicianship, great songs, and vocals. Cons. Linear recording has its limitations, especially with editing, and there is significant expense beyond the initial purchase, like maintenance and tape costs. The art of scrubbing. I just wanted to talk about this. I remember the first time I saw somebody do this, when I saw them rocking the reels backwards and forwards to erase just a little ding that we had in there. It was just pretty cool. Anyway, number 4, digital audio workstation software, a central software hub for music production. This is the core software that most of us use today. We have the integration of VST instruments and VST effects. Syncing video to audio now is trivial. Editing can be down to the millisecond. Cons, hardware requirements, skill requirements that has also a financial and a time cost. Number 3, personal computers, a central hardware hub for music production. Mac or IBM PC compatibles, it doesn't matter, whichever you like. Without the advancements we've had in CPU speed, RAM size, mass storage size, and GPUs, we'd probably still be using some type of dedicated hardware device. Probably one of the ones I've already mentioned. PCs and associated software have given us incredible amounts of power to produce music. Cons, cost. Hardware and software obsolescence, like OS and DAW related, plus maintenance and learning. Often you need to be your own tech support. In my case, I'm many of my friends' tech support. It can be a domino effect of cost. You might want to just update one item for $50, but it means changing maybe your operating system, and once you do that, maybe a whole bunch of other things don't work. That can be a crazy thing to happen, and it's happened to me. Maybe it's happened to you too. Number 2 on our list, MIDI, Musical Instrument Digital Interface. This was a huge advancement. It allowed the hybrid analog tape and sequencer systems I've already talked about. Enabled orchestration via many MIDI devices through key, sync, and controller information. Patch saving, loading, editing. It's been a robust standard since being invented. It's really fared very well over time, with only a few major additions to the specification. Cons, early lack of correct implementation / full implementation by some companies, notably Yamaha with the Velocity on the original DX7, and some other manufacturers that had their devices only receive in omni mode, or they would only receive or transmit on a single channel. No current state-of-the-art version that is backwards compatible like USB. What I'm talking about here is something that just is like super MIDI. We don't have that yet. Number one, digital audio, the de facto technology that enables most of the other tech we use today. It was a new paradigm of sound quality, flexibility for editing at an unprecedented level. It became a part of so many things: CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, MP3s, WAV files, and other formats. It's how we create, deliver, and listen to music today. I see you out there. Hands up. Who remembers Tower Records and Camelot music? Okay, there's a bunch of you. I can recall walking down to Carnaby Street in London's Soho district and traipsing through one far trap record store after another, browsing through record bins, hoping to find something on sale that I liked and could afford. I still have most of that vinyl, actually. Digital audio killed those stores. Digital audio and video killed Blockbuster Video and most mom-and-pop video rental stores across the planet. It's been truly an amazing advancement, but not without carnage. Unfortunately, with AI becoming mainstream, we're all doomed. Only James Cameron will survive. This was a long list and one I thought deeply about before making this episode. I try to read and reply to as many comments as I can, so feel free to tell me about something earth-shattering that I missed. Hopefully I haven't wasted your time. Take care, and I'll be back in another episode soon.